About an hour ago, we heard Utah Senator, who's also a Republican, Orrin Hatch, say he will vote no on the debt ceiling bill later today in the Senate. But does Senator Hatch's Utah colleague, Senator Mike Lee, share that same position? He is joining us from the Russell Rotunda. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
I think you're going to be voting no on this sugar-coated Satan sandwich, too, aren't you?
Those are not my words, but I will be voting no.
Why?
I'll be voting no because this is a permanent problem. When we take on $2.5 trillion in new debt, that's a long-term commitment that's going to take us decades to pay off. It deserves to have a long-term solution attached to it. And the only long-term solution to this kind of problem is a balanced budget amendment. We don't have that one in place. And so we have no business raising the debt limit $2.5 trillion.
I'm going to ask you the same question, Senator Lee, that I asked Senator Hatch, which is, if you knew that you were the last vote to make a difference of whether or not this country went into default, would you still vote no?
Yes, I would. And I would use that to reemphasize the need for a balanced budget amendment. Look, if we keep kicking this can down the road, as then Senator Barack Obama refused to do back in 2006, we will eventually get to the mathematical, economic limiting point of our borrowing authority, not to be confused with our legal borrowing authority. Eventually, we'll borrow so much money within the next few years that lenders will stop lending to us, at least not at rates of interest that we can afford. And it'll end up stealing money from everything from national defense to entitlements. This is an avoidable problem, and we can avoid it by limiting Congress's borrowing power.
Senator, are you actively encouraging your colleagues to vote against this in the same fashion that you are? And have you thought about the worst possible scenario if, in fact, you were successful in getting them to kill this legislation in terms of the calamitous effects of a default?
I've been actively urging my colleagues for the last 6 months not to support any debt limit increase that does not include and is not preceded by a passage by Congress of a balanced budget amendment. That said, it appears that the die is relatively cast, notwithstanding what Senator Reid said yesterday afternoon.
Right.
It does appear that they've got the votes locked up to do this.
Now, one of the things, yesterday on this program, we held up Speaker Boehner's PowerPoint that he was presenting to his members to rally support to pass this. And one of the pages said, no tax hikes. When in reality, when you start to think a little bit about it, if this super commission decides that one of the ways they can pay down the $1.5 trillion or whatever big number it's going to be is to jack up rates, there could be a tax hike, theoretically.
There could be a tax hike, and in that instance, what we'd be faced with is an up or down vote on that proposal, and an up or down vote then in the Senate would not have to cross the normal 60-vote threshold that usually applies and will be applying to today's vote. And so that's of concern to me as well. I fear that this could lead to tax hikes, and that's another reason I'm not willing to support it.
But Senator Lee, there could be tax hikes without the committee doing anything, because the Bush tax cuts are going to expire in 2013, and that would increase revenue by $3.5 trillion without that 12-person committee doing anything.
There may well be tax increases without this. I nonetheless believe that this enhances significantly the likelihood that we could see tax rate increases, separate and apart from the possibility of the Bush tax cuts expiring.
Senator, to achieve the deficit reduction that you hope for and that you've been working so hard for, wouldn't it require a massive reduction in defense spending in this country to realistically do what you're asking to do?
It would certainly require a massive reduction in almost every kind of spending. One of the reasons why I focus on a balanced budget amendment is that if you put that backstop in place, it takes several years to ratify and to take effect. It would give us time to figure out exactly where the cuts would have to be made, and would also give our economy time to recover. But it does have to start happening. It has to start happening right now. We can't afford to punt this any longer.
Well, on the positive side, we're not facing default tonight at midnight.
That is correct. I mean, look, we've been facing two risks here. One is the risk of not raising the debt limit by August 2nd. It looks like we're not going to have to deal with that risk, but that puts us into the position of facing the other risk, which may well turn out to be more severe, which is raising the debt limit without permanent structural spending reforms in place that will change the way we spend money in Washington.
Final question, Senator. Do you think a downgrade would be good for the country in the long run?
No, I don't. I think a downgrade would be terrible for the economy. It will affect everything from mortgage rates that you pay on your home to the rate you pay on your auto loan. It'll have a trickle-down effect that'll affect everything, including job creation. This is one of the reasons why I'm so worried about this debt limit increase.
All right, Senator Mike Lee, I'll pick your brain a little bit more on Kilmeade and Friends when I host the radio show coming up. Thanks for being my guest on that today as well.
Happy to do it. Thank you very much.
See you soon.